Print your transparency. So our goal is to have a transparency with black artwork printed on the textured side of it. When we have a printed transparency, we will use it to make a screen stencil that we will use to print on t-shirts, note cards, wooden signs, metal, burlap, you name it. Once you have a screen stencil made, you can use it to print with any color ink of your choice onto pretty much any surface of your choice. But first we need our printed transparency. So many of you will simply take your transparency and the black oil-based paint marker that was included in your complete screen printing kit, and you will simply draw on the textured side of your transparency. Lucky you if you're one of these gifted artists. I'm not, so I need to use my inkjet printer to print onto the textured side of my transparency. There's a ton of free black and white clip art, just like this turtle, that's out there waiting to be used, to be made into screens. So if you'd like to use the free clip art out there to make a design, then you're watching the right video. So our goal is to make and print a PDF image. You see here that this design was saved as a .pdf extension. The PDF definitely reigns king as a vector file format. It's the best file type to stick with for printing purposes, period. So there's lots of different ways to make a PDF, including, I hear a lot about an application called Canva at canva.com, and it's free, but I feel like there are hidden costs when you're using such an application. When you use it, they ask you to purchase their graphics. Otherwise, you have to upload your own, and that requires saving them to a separate file and then uploading. I decided long ago to use the iDraw application, which actually is now called Autodesk Graphics. But the iDraw or Autodesk Graphics is about 25 bucks, but it's pretty straightforward to use. Also, there are quite a few supporting YouTube videos. If you just simply Google or YouTube Autodesk Graphics tutorials, quite a few how-to videos come up, and they all teach you how to make a black and white image and export it as a PDF. So that's why I chose Autodesk Graphics. You can import pretty much any clip art directly right into the application and convert it to a PDF pretty straightforwardly, as I'm going to show you here. And it just seems like it's pretty easy to use. But it doesn't matter what you use, as long as you print on the textured side of your print transparency, black graphic saved as a PDF, that's pretty much what you're after. So let me show you how to use the Autodesk Graphics to create this little turtle design that I used to make into a screen to print on some t-shirts that I made for friends. So when you buy the Autodesk Graphic, you'll see down here, this is the icon to launch your graphic application. You double click on that and you put File, New, and it'll ask you, what type of paper do you want to design on? I am partial to the grid format because each one of these little squares represents 1 inch. And as you know, when designing your film, there's either the full page film, which is 8.5 by 11, or the half page film, which is 5.5 by 8.5, or the quarter page film, which is just, if you took a piece of paper, folded it in half and then half again, the quarter is 4.25 by 5.5. So this allows me to see kind of just perspective, how big my design is versus the size of the piece of paper that I'm working with. In this case, I'm designing a full page screen, so I put in the width 11 by 8.5. I want it to be oriented just like this, is a landscape orientation. If I had a graphic that I wanted taller than wide, I could type in, 8.5, the opposite here, and 11, and it would orient it height to be 11 inches tall and only 8.5 inches wide is like a portrait landscape. But for my purposes today, I'm going to orient it 11 by 8.5 and choose the grid design, choose, and you'll see the Autodesk graphic application opens up with all of these little squares representing an inch of paper, in this case 11 inches wide, wide by 8.5 inches tall. So what we want to first do is familiarize ourselves with some of these tools. This cursor is the selection tool, and that will be highlighted when you're selecting artwork within the application. So in order to get the turtle design over here, I simply Googled, under here, this Google search bar, I Googled free turtle black and white clip art. And all of these choices under Google Images came up. So I simply scrolled down and I thought this was cute, but I chose ultimately this one. So free clip art images. So I liked this little guy, I thought he was cute. You simply take your cursor, right click, copy image, and go back to the graphic application. Right click again and paste him in there. And you'll see your image. Now, sometimes the images when they're imported are huge. Let's say it's this big. Just go ahead and with your selection tool, select that and come up here and say we only want it to be 5 inches by 5 inches, return. Now, in order to get your image centered in the middle of your 8.5 by 11, what I like about this graphic application is that there's a centering tool, horizontal centers and vertical centers. So if you simply click horizontal and vertical, your image will come right back into the middle of the piece of paper. If you sit on any corner, you can alternate or rotate your image in any way. In this, I'm going to rotate so that he's facing like the example that I want to duplicate, my St. Bart's logo. I have my turtle facing to the right. So let's face the turtle to the right and deselect him. Now, going back to the example, St. Bart's logo, I have this font above and below my little turtle guy. So go back to the image, and in order to lay text on top of the turtle, you select the text tool. Now, as you know, there are many, many fonts to choose from. You can choose Gaffion, etc. But I like engravers for this purpose. So choose the size. You can make it smaller or larger. And then using your selection tool, select the text once you're fine with the size of it and center it right to left. And again, you don't want to print anything on this white canvas is going to print on your finished design. So you don't want, first of all, you don't want the text over onto the gray part because it won't show up in your printed design. And you also don't want it right on the edge because you need to keep a 1/2 inch border all the way around your design. So you have to make sure that it's kind of in the center of your piece of paper, leaving a 1/2 inch, which is 3 blocks around the perimeter at the very least. So you can put that there, and then St. Bart's, the original design says on island time. On island time. You choose your selection tool again and center it left to right. If I chose the centering up and down, it's going to pull it to the center, the up and down center of the canvas. So you really just want to, for this purpose, to center it right to left. And that looks good. So if you wanted to alter this little guy in any way, here is a zoom tool. If you click on the zoom tool and then click your mouse, you'll see how you're increasing the size of the turtle. To zoom back out, hold down the Option key and you'll see your plus sign turn to a minus sign, and simply click your mouse and it'll zoom back out onto your canvas. But you can select the turtle and change and modify the turtle in different ways. One of the ways you can change and modify is, let's say you don't want him to have this back flipper. You can erase it with your eraser. The width of the eraser can be increased so it's easier to erase. Okay, if you want to undo that, undo the eraser, edit, undo the eraser, edit, undo the eraser. This edit, undo is critical in my use of design. I make many mistakes or I want to trial and error things. The edit, undo is wonderful to have. The other ways that you can modify this design is its color saturation. Again, you want the darkest black ink possible printed on the textured side of your transparency. So if it doesn't quite seem black, or if you want to modify the color just to make sure it is extremely black, go to your plug-in image and come to your color controls. And here you'll see your image pop up. I like to choose high saturation on the image, and that way you can really get a lot of ink depositing down onto your transparency. Go back to the plug-in image color controls. The contrast. Now, you can change the contrast and apply, and you'll see sometimes it makes it a little grainy on the edges. Here, edit, undo the contrast. If you notice that, you might want to not use under plugins image that contrast so heavily. You might want to just do it till it's not so grainy, because anything you see on your screen will print onto your transparency and then be made into your screen stencil. So if it's not got a clean edge like this one doesn't, I would suggest undoing that and not using that. This is a pretty clean edge and I'm pretty happy with how this turtle looks. So I just wanted to show you that plug-in image color control is there. The other thing that sometimes I have used, depending on the image that I've imported, is plug-in image photo effects. This changes the look of the turtle, and I have found that mono makes it black and white and it looks really nice. Sometimes if it's a gray image, it'll turn it to black. So holding down the Option key, I can pan out on my canvas. There you go. Now let's say I decided that I would like to only do a half-page screen design, which is a piece of paper folded in half. That would measure 5.5 by 8.5. You can modify your canvas size in the middle of designing and say I wanted it to only be 5.5 by 8.5. So 8.5 and the height 5.5. I wanted to actually design only a half-page screen. Then I could see here, I need to make my turtle much smaller, center him, and then bring this down, making sure that at least a 1/2-inch border is all the way around the design. And I can modify the typeface, the type size, whatever it is, even in the middle of designing the screen. Here I'm going to center this text right and left. So I could make that into a half-page screen. I'm going to go back to modify canvas size, and I'd like to go back to the 8.5 by 11 full-page screen. So let's make our turtle larger. You can either stretch the turtle to make it larger and center it, or and say I would like him to be 5 inches by 5 inches, and then center that. If I'd like to make the turtle longer, you can stretch this out and see these areas here and here to the right and left. They can be filled with the turtle image and make him long and skinny simply by coming over here, clicking the appearance option and clicking scale to fit or stretch to fit. When I click stretch to fit, he's going to be a really long turtle. And then I can play with his measurements and center him again. If I don't like that, I can edit, undo, edit, undo, edit, undo, edit, undo, edit, undo. So just keep going, edit, undo, and it'll take you back eventually. I think the maximum edit, undo might be 10 strokes. So that's always an option too. But for this purpose, I want to have a nice little square logo. I'm going to size him to about 5 inches, pull my engraver's font to either side of him, and call it a day. I like how that looks. Select this, center the text. Select this, center it. Now, in order to export him as a PDF, you simply File, Save As, and I'm going to call him Turtle Example. And I like to keep 2 files. I like to keep the original iDraw file in case I want to go back and edit it in any way. I'm going to put it here in my small dog artwork. Save. And I like to export it as a PDF so that I can print it. File, Export, choose the PDF, highest image resolution 600, scale at 100%, save. Turtle example.pdf is the extension into my small dog art. Save. Now, if I go under my small dog art file, you will see Turtle Example PDF under my small dog art file folder, the turtle. And I can file, print, load my 8.5 by 11 transparency into my printer's paper cartridge, making sure that the textured side will be printed on. Choose the black and white, full page, 8.5 by 11, full page. I'm going to orient it this way, scale it to 100%, and always choose the highest ink quality so that it lays down the most ink per square inch, and print, and you'll have a transparency printed from a PDF design. That'll make a very nice stencil. Now, if you remember, the master, the image that I was trying to replicate, was actually a curved image. This St. Bart's logo was curved. So I can show you how to curve the text quickly to make it look more like the logo I was trying to replicate. So in order to curve text, what you're going to do is you want to place this text on a curved path. So what I mean is, let's create a circle surrounding our turtle. Simply select the circle from your left side of your sheet. Okay, draw a circle. The fill color you can have to be black, which it is now, white, or transparent. Click back on the fill color and select the line weight of the oval. So the line weight, again, you can select the color, black, white, transparent. In this case, we went black. Select the color black, and then go to your line weight. And I weighted the line at about a 10, 8, 9. Keep clicking your cursor and you'll see that the weight of the line gets skinnier as you go down in points and fatter as you go up. And weight your line to about a 10. Then taking your selection tool, go make sure your selection tool is blue and that you've highlighted not the turtle but your oval, and go ahead and center that up and down and right and left. Okay, so you've centered the oval. Now you can see it's way too large for an 8.5 by 11 transparency. This circle is infringing on our keeping a 1/2 inch border all the way around your design. So I'm going to pull that closer in to about right there on both sides, right there, so that I easily clear the 1/2 inch margin all the way around. So I still really like that. We can go back to our example that we're trying to recreate, St. Bart's logo. And we can see this is a 10-inch weighted line. And we can see how it's curved. So I like that. So now we're going to select, using our selection tool, select the circle, and if we're happy with how that looks, copy and paste that, and then make it smaller for the inside circle. Let's just say that's how small we want it, even smaller. It'll clear the flippers there. And then center it again, right and left and up and down. You can even get a little smaller. There. So that looks good to me. I like that. Now what we're going to want to do coming over here is, again, place this text onto the path of this inside line. So we'll copy and paste that inside circle right over here. Okay? And what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to select the circle, push your shift key down, and then select the text so that both are highlighted. And come up here and say modify, place the text, St. Bart's text, onto the path of the oval circle. And you'll see the circle will go away, but the text is now on that circle or the oval's path. This blue dot, there'll be one blue dot every time you do that, which helps you kind of move and center the text around that circle. Now, you are halfway there. Select the text again using your selection tool, highlight the text, and go back over to your centering tool and center it up and down and right and left. And you will see that it's set onto that invisible oval. It's set onto the path of that oval. If you want to move it up a little bit, I suggest using the up and down arrows on your keyboard to center it kind of better in the middle of that. But you can also, if you want the text to start here, you can start it there. Here, you can start it there. Just make sure that it's centered in the exact spot that you want it. And if you want, you can actually move and make the image larger or smaller by pulling in the corners. I'm going to edit, undo that. Edit, undo that. Edit, undo that. Edit, undo that. I kind of like it to have about the same curvature as the original, so I'm going to keep it just like that. Done. St. Bart's. Now let's do that again, but for purposes of the bottom text, we're going to actually place that text right here on the outside circle. So select the circle, copy it over off your work surface, paste it, highlight the circle, push down the shift key and highlight the text so that they're both highlighted. Go up to modify, place the text on the path. Now you're going to see something interesting happen. The text is upside down. You can move it around with this little blue circle, but it does read upside down and nobody can read that way. So in order to flip it to the inside of the circle, go under Modify, Rotate and Transform, Flip Horizontal, and you'll see all of a sudden the text gets flipped horizontally inside the circle. Now, because this is still active and highlighted, you can center it right and left and up and down, and it'll scooch over here onto your canvas. Again, I'm going to use my little arrow keys on my keyboard and center that into the middle of the circles. If I want to alter the shape anyway of my text, I can pull in these boxes and play with it. Edit, undo move, edit, undo size, edit, undo size. I kind of liked having the same curvature as the exterior box. I think that looks pretty. Maybe go in just a little bit on each side. But in general, I think that looks really good. And it looks pretty centered. To add the small, again, going back to our example logo of what we're trying to recreate, to add these small little circles that I added just on either side of his, head and flippers here on the back, what you do is go to the circle and make sure that the stroke color is black. If you wanted it to be a different color, get your eyedropper and you could make it orange or whatever, red. Again, for our purposes, we have to print only in black ink, so the stroke should be black for purposes of making a PDF screen stencil. But go ahead, make a little circle. If you select him with the cursor tool, it'll tell you how big the circle is. Maybe I want it to be 2 by 2. Oh, much too big. Maybe I want it to be 1 by 1. or even smaller. I think I only want it maybe point, let's say 0.29 by 0.29. That looks good. And now I'm going to center that up and down. That's even too big. Let's make it a little smaller. Let's say 0.2 by 0.2. Or that's even better, 0.19 by 0.19. Love it. And then center that up and down. And I'll have to, by using the selection tool, cursor, I'll have to use my right and left arrow keys to decide where I want that centered. Right and left. Because if I put the right and left center there, it'll take it right into the middle of the artwork. And I want it centered right here, up and down. I'm using my keyboard arrows to kind of pull it back over here. But I just want it centered right here in this oval. I keep saying circle instead of oval. I apologize. You know what I mean. So there you go. Maybe over a little. Now, if you would like to copy that right over here, using your selection tool, highlight it, and either right click, copy, and paste. And then use your little keyboard arrows to center that. Or edit, paste. And then scooch it over. And then center it up and down. And scooch it into the middle of these two ovals. There, that looks pretty good to me. Ta-da! So there's your St. Bart's on Island Time logo. Again, all you have to do is File, first save it as an iDraw into a file folder, and secondly, File, Export as a PDF, turtle example, into a file folder. And I'll replace it so that I have the round logo again. Hope this quick tutorial helped you. Again, I really like using iDraw. Was bought, I guess, by Autodesk, and it's called Graphics now. So I really like using the Autodesk Graphics application for making black printed designs into PDFs for use on printing on the textured side of my transparency. But as long as you have a PDF design, you're going to be good to print on your transparency with whatever application you use, whether it be the Canva or this or any other. Thanks. Email me any questions that you might have, and good luck.